Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Frenemies, the podcast where growth meets reality. Today, I'm joined by Lars Grønnegaard, the CPO and co-founder of Dreamdata. Hi, Lars.
Hey, Julia. Super happy to be on the show. Looking forward to the episode and seeing where this takes us.
Right back at you. We quickly also talked about this, but we actually met in Stockholm briefly a few months ago, and you were the second person from Dreamdata. I have on the podcast. I previously had Laura on, your sales director for the US market. So I'm very excited to hear your perspective on attribution in 2026 and the attribution problem that companies still face. So to dive right into it, I mean, Dreamdata was built to solve the attribution problem in B2B. From a founder's perspective, what was the specific gap that the tools that existed couldn't solve?
Yeah. So I think it's a fairly sort of standard founding story. We founded the company back in 2018, and it wasn't like that there weren't any solutions for the attribution problem back then. The company called Visible was kind of the incumbent in the market at that point. And we were working at a company called Trustpilot here in Copenhagen. And we were sitting in the product and tech team there. And Trustpilot is a bit weird because it's like this mix. It's actually like I would call it like a PLG motion-ish. So you drive a lot of free signups into a B2B product, and then you upsell a paid product to them. So because we were in the product team, we were doing this. We took maybe like a very big interest in the commercial side of the business. And the big problem we had was like nobody actually knew, outside of we would sign the contracts and some contract software and people would send us money. Nobody really knew where the customers came from. So like the classical attribution problem, maybe with a twist that, it was also like product. So it's like product, marketing, and sales, and like 3 departments, each contributing, but nobody really knew what the mix looked like. And like, let's say somebody showed up, an investor with a lot of money, and we wanted to invest. What could we actually do with that money? That was hard to predict because we didn't really know the mechanics of the motion. So that's kind of how we got started. And then you can ask, like, why didn't we just use Visible? Because it was already that was at that point a fairly successful company. And the reason it didn't really fit us was that we were, I would say, early adopters of data warehouse technology. So we had a lot of data in a data warehouse at that point when we needed it. And Visible was kind of founded maybe 5 years too early for that. So they had their model was that they stuffed all the data into Salesforce. And we had already tried that, and it just didn't work for us because there was just too much, especially all the sort of interaction data of a lot of users doesn't really fit in Salesforce. I think we fundamentally broke our Salesforce instance for a couple of days, and then we had to clean it up. So that was not a good experience. So we felt that we needed something that worked with all the data we already had in our data warehouse. And then we went looking for it and discovered that didn't really exist. So that's basically, we had all this tracking data from a product called Segment, which is still like a very nice product and was like market standard for tracking. And we had a lot of, we moved all the Salesforce data into the data warehouse. We moved all the HubSpot data in there, and we had lots of data in that data warehouse. And we felt, hey, look, all this data is pretty standard. So where's the product that just stitches it together so we don't have to spend 2 years doing it? And that didn't exist. So that's like probably also like a typical founding story, that you meet a problem, you get super annoyed, and then you solve it, and then you think, okay, maybe somebody else has this problem. You try to go out and sell it, and you find a few people that want to work with you, and then that's how you get started.
I think there's this beautiful connection, because one of the things that I find in attribution, but especially also in alignment, which is one of like the core reasons Frenemies was created. The alignment between sales and marketing, and now looking broader and bringing product into it, and rather this gap between growth and reality is the human point. So I experience lots of sales and marketing teams that, with, for example, Dreamdata or other solutions, and the transparency that digital solutions bring to customer journeys and attribution and so on, still don't act on the data together. How do you see that, both in your founding story, of course, which connects that human element of not only solving a problem, but of course also working with the people you want to work with, but especially so in the attribution problem?
Yeah. I think fundamentally, like the you definitely need the data, so you need to bring the data together. But in the end, that's not really going to help if the people don't want to work together. So the data, like, there's a lot of things you can't do if you don't sort of do this holistic data model where you stitch all the data together. There are many things you can't do, like attribution, lots of nice like activation plays, like a million things that you want to do. But I think all of it doesn't really matter unless the people want to work together. So the data doesn't solve that. Like if the marketing team, I'll not speak too much about the product team because that was like fundamentally, like, that was a big thing for me at Trustpilot. But in this company, our product doesn't really solve for this PLG. We are more about sort of marketing, sales, collaboration. But if the teams don't want to work together, if they don't share a culture, if they don't believe in each other, then the data is not really going to solve a lot, right? Then you're just going to use the data to beat each other up with, and that's probably just making the problem bigger, right?
Yes, it is also coming from a leadership point of view, right? But
Yeah.
bringing the specific data point into it, in the cases you're seeing in your customers, but also from your own experience from Dream Data, do you see this disalignment and attribution problem as a data problem or as a trust problem?
So I think it's all about the people first, and then the data can help a lot if you agree that it makes sense to work together, and if you, like, from the sales side, you agree that marketing is actually bringing value to the sales process, and also from the marketing side, you recognize that maybe one of your top goals should be to enable the sales team and make them successful and sell a lot. So if you have that agreement, and maybe also I think also it helps to have a fundamental agreement about what is the go-to-market motion of the company. So are we, say, a marketing-led company? Are we a sales-led company? Are we, some can be a product-led company? Are we inbound driven? Are we like, how do we view outbound? So some, like, having a view on what is the go-to-market motion of the company, I think helps a lot. And everybody is aligned on that and saying, hey, look, we are this type of company. And that also means, like, sometimes you can say, well, we're an inbound company, but we'd actually like to learn how to do outbound, because then sales can sell more and we're all going to be more successful. So if we can add a big outbound component to our go-to-market motion, it would be good for us. And then you work together to do that, because, like, most modern outbound motions are also heavily dependent on marketing, right? So I think the fundamental alignment of sort of, hey, this is our go-to-market strategy or motion, and we are all playing into this. And it, the sales motion doesn't work if the marketing motion doesn't work, and the marketing motion working without feeding the sales motion doesn't really matter. So a fundamental level of respect and shared culture, I think, is like the first thing you should solve.
Yes, and I mean, As a co-founder, having scaled Dreamdata and expanded across markets, how did you ensure that that this this basis, this foundation stays and is built to scale across departments, across teams, and also, changing market conditions, changing motions, and so on?
So you can say we're still, I would call it like a small company. We're less than 100 people. We're just touching 100 people across 2 geographies. So, you know, staying at that size helps. So if you can somehow scale your company without adding, 10 geographies and 1,000 people, that makes it a lot easier. And I think we were unlucky, or we were just, the makeup of the team that founded the company was quite sort of holistic in its thinking. So that helps, of course. But I think if you don't have this alignment, someone has to be quite deliberate about creating it, and sort of aligning the culture. And, I think there's a lot of people who think of attribution as like fighting over credit and like who gets the credit and like, did we do this or do we, like, if that's why you're thinking about attribution, then you probably have another problem. Maybe attribution isn't really your problem, because the problem is that you're fighting over credit, and in the end you should just be counting the new business that you're doing, because that's the success that you're looking for together. And great go-to-market teams, they will use attribution to, I would say, like, improve their motion. So basically, like, attribution is a way to sort of look at something you're doing and compare it to something else and say, hey, should I do more of this? Or you try to do something new. Attribution can help you understand if it worked or if it didn't work. So it's a great, say, methodology for improving your business. But if you're kind of leaning towards this, I'm going to prove, or I'm going to take credit for my work, I think that typically is associated with, or can be associated with, lack of alignment, because you're fighting over something that you shouldn't be fighting over. That, like, you should be fighting together to get more of, like, the thing that you really care about, right?
That's a very good point, and I think it's a bit the chicken and egg problem, right? So I mean, if there is a problem of, like, there is so much friction and fighting over which department led which deal and so on, then attribution, of course, solves a certain puzzle piece, but maybe not to what attribution was actually invented to do, right? In that way, I think attribution is also a great tool for alignment. I touched base on that with Adam Holmgren from Fibler, who also mentioned that what he sees in the SMB space, that there is still lots of teams today, 2026, that are flying blind on data, on the actual customer journeys. So to hear your perspective on that as well. Is that still the status of 2026? And if so, why?
In my view, like, there's definitely a lot of teams out there who don't really know what's going on. And I think the honest that, like, why are so many people flying blind? It's because it's hard to get a great map and a good GPS for this problem. And even if you choose to go with a vendor, it's not like implementation free. I think everybody who has tried to adopt an attribution solution, including our own, will recognize that, it doesn't just magically work. I mean, there's a lot of things that, so you're doing attribution to something, like you care about your sales pipeline, for instance. You want to know what created my sales pipeline, or you want to know, this campaign, did that somehow contribute to my sales pipeline? Well, now, even though you're sort of bringing in a great tool that can help you with that, you still need to figure out, what is my sales pipeline? And a lot of companies don't know that. Like they don't, or maybe the marketing team doesn't actually know what the sales pipeline is. And that sounds crazy, but the sales pipeline can be one place, or it can be two places, or it can be 10 places, or it can be one place, but actually it's somewhere inside of the place. Like if, I don't know if I'm being too cryptic here, but like basically you have these pipelines in Salesforce or HubSpot or wherever you're working. And maybe you have an enterprise pipeline and a SMB pipeline and a mid-market pipeline. Or maybe you have an American pipeline and a European pipeline. Or maybe you have one big pipeline. Maybe all your recurring business in the same pipeline. If you're SaaS, maybe all your renewal deals are also in the pipeline. Maybe they're not. Maybe you're doing like maybe your pipeline runs all the way from sort of early qualification all the way through to close one deal. So someone has to sit down and understand what is it actually that I want to do. And that, like, no tool is going to fix that for you. Like a good tool will help you model what pipeline is for you. So that's what you can expect from the tool. But in the end, you have to go and talk to someone in the business who knows, where do they actually go, these things that are called opportunities or deals. And
Yeah.
and that's just like one problem in adopting a solution. I think a solution for this will help you, do the technical parts of this very, very fast. And a good vendor
Yeah.
will also assist you in sort of figuring these things out, like what, they should have an opinion about this and be able to talk to you about it and help you discover it. But there's work for anybody. So I think there is work. Even if you choose to go with a vendor, there's work. A lot of people don't go with a vendor. And then maybe some people had a bad vendor and had I think lots of marketers bought attribution tools and hated them and have bad experience and don't ever want to do it again. So maybe just, some people are just, I don't know, burned and don't want to do it again.
Mm.
And then they choose to try to sort of stitch a truth together from other things. Can you then get sort of enough direction from your spreadsheets and opening up Salesforce and opening up Google Ads and opening up Google Analytics? And I think that's okay. I'm representing a vendor. Of course, I don't think that that's a very good idea, because that is fundamentally like you're looking at things that don't sort of naturally stitch together. So you end up with something that's not really a very good picture of what's going on in your go-to-market. But still, that can take a long time before you discover it, right? So you can go through motions of like trying to adopt a vendor, failing. Okay, you just lost a year. Trying to then go with something else, like stitch it together, takes a year. Like, so I think it's just a complicated problem to solve. And even the best solutions can be, you still have to put in the work to make it work.
Mm. I mean, that is, I think that is such an interesting point, especially, and I don't know how you see it from a product perspective, but from a marketing perspective, I think marketing teams are often very drawn to adopting new solutions. I have always experienced marketing teams as early adopters of new solutions and very keen to increase the tech stack and build upon it. But at the same time, as you point out, with every solution comes great responsibility, and with great responsibility also comes more work, right? Of actually ensuring it gets used properly, it is integrated properly, and also bringing the alignment angle back to use it the best possible way. And in attribution specifically, looking at what do all departments get out of it? For which departments is this actually valuable, and how can this improve? And attribution is also one of these points where alignment is really important, right? Or deciding on what attribution model actually gets used across the company. How do you see it with your customers? Is it still like a first touch versus last touch decision, or has the market moved a bit further than that?
I think a lot of companies will still be using things like, stamping something in a CRM and looking at that, and that would typically be like in a B2B motion would be last touch. So that definitely, there's a lot of people still sort of basing decisions off that. Most people who go out and buy something or try to build something will look for something that is more sophisticated. I would say you can build sophisticated attribution models. Of course, we have one. So you can build something very sophisticated, and it's better for sure. I think in the end, the big problem in attribution is not the actual attribution model. I think like picking something like first touch or last touch is a bit, I think that's going to be a poor decision. But the big problem is actually, like, I would say, getting the data together. So getting all the data together and then getting it into a form where you can do attribution or other sort of meaningful analytics on top of it. So I think that's the big problem. And I think maybe that's what, sales teams, they have adopted like the CRM system and bought that, and they're struggling with the data quality and that. But a lot of marketing teams, they don't really have, I would say, their own place for their data. Like they can still have a lot of products that they bought, but a lot of them will sort of be feeding off Salesforce data, putting data back into Salesforce, and they don't have a place that represents the data that really matters to them, which is like the entire, like for marketers, it should be like the entire customer journey from everything that happened on an account before and after purchase, and like all the way through to churn. That's what you care about as a marketer, and having that data or a product that manages that, I think that is a big step for a lot of marketers, and it's hard to adopt because a lot of marketers are not, native to living in a data warehouse. It's not like they love opening up their Snowflake and writing some SQL queries. That's not what marketers dream about. So I think like but on the other hand, they kind of still, I think as a marketer, you still need this data because it's so fundamental to so many things you do, including attribution, right? So I'd say the big sort of jump in attribution for a team is really the data. Whether they choose something like us or they choose like hire some data people, build like a data warehouse solution, I think that's just often very hard for a marketing team because marketing teams are not used to hiring those types of data people, right? They live in other parts of the organization, and then they're hard to get hold of once you want them, right? Because now they're working on the ERP system or some other thing, right?
It's a very interesting perspective, and to be honest, as a marketer at heart, firstly, I think there is lots of data-driven marketers out there, and I'm certainly one myself as well. So as I've experienced it, I actually think that lots of marketers are very focused on data. And I think when I look back at the last 12 years of working in marketing, I mean, what really moved the needle for marketing and for marketers is the transparency that data brings and the amount of data that is available now. When I started in marketing, the understanding was still a bit more that marketing is the fluffy part, and marketing is the nice colors and is the nice wordings, and certainly that is a core aspect of translating the founder's vision, the product, and so on, in a way that that of course sells and gets can be promoted easily. But data has added an element of actually making marketing performance driven and optimized and scalable and provable. And attribution, of course, is a core piece in B2B, and the complexity that B2B brings in that. You as a CPO, from your perspective, what does the CPO see that the CCO and the CMO don't see?
Yeah, I thought about this. I think, I would say hopefully anybody in a C-level position can think holistically about the entire organization. So I think that is like as anybody at like a C-level should be thinking about the whole business and have like I would call like a founder mentality, whether they are founders or not, right? They should be
Mm.
thinking about the whole company. But I do think that still, I guess like if you're a product person, you tend to think in product solutions. I can give a good example. So the concept of product market fit, everybody talks about it, right? So if you are a product person, you just hear product. Product fit. And it means that if you have a problem with product market fit, a product person will think that he should change the product, right? So I think there is probably like depending on where you sit. Um, I, I don't know if marketers think that if there's a product market fit, they should change the market. But at least I think it would be great if more people thought about that when they think about product market fit. That maybe they should just change the market. And then like I would say like after a product market fit, there's maybe go to market fit, which is like how do you then take this product to that market? Like what is that process? And again, you know, maybe your product market fit problem isn't a product market fit problem. Maybe it's just that you are selling it the wrong way. Maybe you're trying to do outbound on this product and nobody cares. Like you can't ever reach that person outbound because it just doesn't exist. So maybe if you sold it another way, it will work. So maybe you go to market. So I think probably depending a bit on like where you sit, you'll see different solutions to what is maybe the same problem. And yeah, sometimes solving a product market fit problem with product can be insanely expensive if what you actually needed to do
Mm.
was, you know, stop calling the performance marketer, start calling the brand marketer, or stop calling tech companies, start calling manufacturing companies, or there are many aspects of market, or maybe, hey, whatever you built doesn't really work in Europe, so start selling in the US, or um, so I'd say different people with the different focus areas will see different solutions to the problem.
Yes, and I mean that's the interesting part of go-to-market teams, right? And also in some understandings like growth teams, where you have people from the different disciplines in there that have their unique perspectives on problems. Where do you see products? Of course, your own with Dreamdata, but also when you look at the market, how much do you think products currently focus on customer centricity?
Hey, yeah, I think at least if you're not doing it, you have a problem. But I think that's been true forever. Like if you don't build to real customer problems, and if you don't sort of involve yourself with your customer when you're building, you I mean, you can be lucky. I mean, there's also such a thing as luck. But if you want to be lucky more often, then working with customers in the product process is key.
Mm.
So basically, like, yeah, you know, if you're building a new product and you tell people about it and nobody says, "Hey, show me your product, sounds exciting," like, uh, maybe you shouldn't be building the product, right? Or maybe you should ask other people, which is like then the market side of it, or maybe you should tell a different story. But anyway, I think like eh, testing and talking to customers in the product development process is insanely important. Also because like the examples I made were like, okay, so even if you're building the right product, somebody is gonna, produce the marketing materials for this. So they should also be there to hear why somebody cares about the product or why they don't care about the product or what they think about when you talk about the product. Because, if you know these things, the marketing side of this is going to be better
Mm.
and the sales pitch is going to be better. Um, so if you don't talk to customers in the process of getting ready with the product, you end up in this situation where, oh, here's a product. How do we sell it? It's not it's not something that is, uh, it happens all the time, right? People build something and they go like, oh, what do we do with this? Why did we even build it? So if you're good at working with customers, you'll know, and you'll know how to sell it. And hopefully you even did sell it in the process so that you have some people who bought it. So when you go to your sales team and say, hey, we have this product and look, we have 10 customers on it. They love it. So it just makes everything a lot better.
I mean, definitely. But again, bringing like market trends and what is currently happening into it. I mean, AI is essentially changing lots of products, right? And they actually, I had Michael Heiberg on from Ocean.io, who mentioned it like LLMs becoming like a UI point for products, which is a
Yep.
massive shift. And the question arises, like, how do you actually how can you actually create customer value with this massive shift? How do you look at that from your perspective and from a Dreamdata perspective?
So I think everybody's faced with this sort of reality of a new platform that all of a sudden appeared. And I think it came very fast relative to, what maybe people were expecting. So I think like the agent, specifically Claude as a platform, has just become insanely important in B2B software. And everybody has to understand how they represent themselves on that platform. Everybody needs to think about this and like figure out how do I make my product relevant in that context, because it's not going away and your customers want it. So of course there might be some of your customers who can't use it, so you can't just build for that, because maybe you're selling to enterprise and they can't use it. So you need to factor in that all of your SMB customers, maybe excluding a few in some very sensitive areas, like they will all be using this, and you need to figure out what does this new world look like for you, for your product, right? What does it look like? And everybody has to think about also like, hey, is my product actually, what does the future for my product look like in this world? Like, am I replaceable by Claude skill? It kind of sucks if you are, but but everybody has to think about this and think what the impact is. I'd say like the work then is talk to your customers. Hopefully as a company, like this is like from the product side. From the product side, hopefully you understand why your product exists and like what is the pain you're solving for the customer. What are your use cases? And then you go and talk to your customers and try to figure out how they want to solve them in this new world. And then you will discover that they have, a lot of new ideas about how to solve it, right? Maybe, we have customers that are telling us, hey, look, love your product, we're just done logging into it. That's it.
Yeah.
Because, we're not logging into your product anymore. So make sure we can do everything from outside of the product. And then, as a business, you can decide that you don't want to support that and lose, 25% of your customers, or you can decide that probably that's the direction the world is taking, and then you support it.
Yeah.
And then you also think about all the, you can see it as a disadvantage and something that is hurting you, or you can see it as like a massive wave that if you figure out how to position yourself right on that wave, you can have a really great ride on it, right?
Yes. And from a product development standpoint, where is AI currently moving the needle, and where is it pure hype?
Whether in building products or I think in building products, I think there are a couple of things. Everybody's talking about this, that sort of the building of a product is becoming smaller and smaller. If you think about the entire sort of product, this is a product, then the building was this much, and now it's sort of compressing. And all the other parts, which is like, what should I be building? How do I sell it? How do I market it? Those things are like, now the big parts are like, before everybody were constrained by engineering resources, and now people are gradually becoming constrained by all the other resources like product management, design, user experience, legal, product marketing, all of this sort of, maybe if you have delivery management, like all of the things that are like it's complicated to build a product from an engineering perspective, but it's also complicated to build a product from, all the other perspectives of a product. So I think that is like a big movement that's happening in product. And so I'd say like everybody who is in product management or design probably feels more busy and more important in their company now, and in product marketing. And the other big thing that I think has changed with it, I don't know if it's like a general thing, but like in this company, I think the ability to sort of prototype complicated products at a very high level of sort of, it becomes very realistic. Like we can prototype something that was just impossible to prototype before. So you can actually build a prototype version of a product and give it to a customer and understand what they think about the product, instead of just presenting slides or, clickable prototypes or like things that don't really work with data. Now you can sort of show people something that is very close to the real product, with, at a level of effort where like before it was just impossible to do, and now it's very doable. Like now you can, I think everybody knows Lovable. So like building prototypes with Lovable or Claude Code or whatever has become, that's super powerful for a product team. And then maybe like the last thing is moving to a place where it's sort of a little bit like the first one, but there's a lot of things where before you would have like, this small change to the product, it would go into a backlog, somebody would pick it up, and then it would go through this long process, and they would implement it wrong, and then have to go back, and then you redo it. And now, like I'd say, like good product teams, the designer or the product manager, or even like the supporter, like simple things can actually be done by these people now, because the coding, the actual engineering work of it is so simple that an agent can easily do it. So you just change this copy. Maybe you don't have a great system for it, so you just go change this copy, and then there's like a pull request. Somebody has to review it and merge it, and that's probably good to have an engineer doing that. but you don't really need the engineering team to do the whole process, so they can do more complicated things, right?
So you would say it's like that it has also freed a lot of space and time for the engineering team to actually focus on the heavy lifting and they have to do, and lots of the like kind of purely executional tasks can get outsourced to AI.
Maybe like the last thing, like that's actually, I should have said this first, because this is one of the things that excites me the most. Is like I think everybody who works in product knows that they should be spending 50 hours a week listening to sales calls, and there's just not that many hours in the week, so nobody's doing it, obviously. So in the end, I could say like very good product managers listen to a lot of sales calls and customer success calls, etc. But even if you're a very good one and you listen to a lot, you still have a lot of other jobs to do. And I think like AI has made it possible to scale this like in a very big way. Like if you have a lot of transcribed calls, you can actually you can find out everything that people ask for in your product that you don't have, or you can figure out how salespeople actually sell the product, like what is actually the problem that people want solved. Like there are many things that before it could be hard to get translated from the go-to-market team into a product team, where now the access to the data makes it, you can do things that were just, because it was completely unscalable before, you wouldn't do them, but now you can actually scale it, because you can just have Claude read 100 transcripts if you want, or 1,000 even if you want that, or 10,000, if you have enough money.
And enough of the how's it called, the
tokens.
Tokens.
No.
Dreamdata sits right at the intersection of marketing data and revenue data. So what does great sales and marketing alignment look like in practice, bringing this data into it?
Yeah, I mean, like great alignment, of course, like wearing the same clothes. No, I don't know. Um, I think we covered this also in the beginning. Like there's a
Yeah,
lot of alignment that's not really about the data. So caring
yeah,
about each other, aligning on why you are in the company, what's the purpose. I think those things are not about the data. I would say um, if you have a great data foundation that is sort of shared between the across the entire go-to-market team, then it looks like your you know people who are active in your marketing channels can float seamlessly into your sales channel, for instance, like something like that. Like it's the
mm,
same data, so you can go from website interest or engaging with ads, like anything that's sort of like where this you can sort of bring people forward in a customer journey by having the full journey in one place
yeah,
and being able to feed the data into whatever system is now the next system. So like maybe your first system is some ad platform, then the next system is maybe your website and some maybe webinar platforms or anything you're doing in marketing where you're getting closer to the customer. But then like the next system is maybe the CRM, maybe it's your outreach system, maybe it's depending a bit on what's happening. But if you can, like great alignment means like a fluid and sort of seamless motion through this, like through the funnel. Um,
but how can you notice that in practice? Based on your own example, are things more efficient, or how can you notice the specific flow and the great alignment in the day-to-day work and what practice looks like?
I think if you, in many ways, like if you go and ask the sales, like you go and ask your, I don't know if you have a BDR team, if you go and ask them if they are provided with something, and if you're a good marketer, you're providing them with a lot of accounts that you have at least warmed up somehow, like you've done something to them so that you're not calling into a completely cold account. So if you go and talk to your BDR team and they tell you, look, we throw away 90% of the accounts that you're passing on to us, then the alignment isn't that great. Like, and that the data can actually be great, but the alignment isn't great because the marketing team thinks that we should be producing this type of account with interest, but the BDR team is telling me we actually want this. So we're throwing away 90%, and maybe even worse, like the thing we really want is not even there, right? So I
Mm.
think if you go and ask sort of down the funnel how they feel about what they're getting, if you have lots of demo requests, go and talk to the sales team. Like, do they like the demo requests? Are they good? Is there a lot of crap in there? Are people that people ask for a demo, do they show up with the right set of expectations around the product? Like, do they, you're selling, I don't know, you're selling attribution and they show up and they want to buy a CRM. Like, okay, there's some level of misalignment. And so I think your great alignment, but that's maybe not around data. But I don't know if it's the data that's doing that. It's more the data has to be there for this to work.
Yeah, I mean that is a core part. And what do you see as the most common misalignment between what marketing teams think drives pipeline and between what Dream Data, for example, shows your customers what is actually driving pipeline?
I don't think I see this a lot. Maybe I'm just not very exposed to it. But sort of, I would say the big misalignments can be like doing big investments if you're doing big investments in projects that are not directly driving pipeline, and you are not at the same time also driving a lot of pipeline, then there's misalignment. I think like the classical example, but it's also a bit sort of cliche, so it's not something I see a lot. But it's like, you know, the sales team is, starved for leads. Like nothing is happening. They have to source everything themselves, and the marketing team is building a new website. That building a new website is a 6-month project minimum. So then there's a misalignment. But I don't know if this is happening a lot anymore. It's not something we also may be exposed to a special type of company, like the people who engage with us probably are more aligned, are more sort of interested, like share this view that, you have to, as a marketer, you're a big part of making the cash register ring, right? You're a
Yes.
big part of that. So I don't really see a lot of it.
I mean, that is a big proof point kind of Dreamdata as well, right? Because if you don't see that existing too much in within your client base, that of course also means that Dreamdata has effectively helped create the transparency and alignment, right? Because it prevents teams from investing in activities that aren't driving pipeline.
Do you see, like, what would you have answered here?
Well, I'm not a CPO.
No.
But the interesting point is to hear, like, also here, of course, Dreamdata perspective, but also the product perspective on this, right? There, I'm of course looking at different clients. I think that depends heavily on like what company you're looking at, and again, the proof points. And I think what it comes down to a lot of times is also what are we actually trying to achieve with an initiative. Because if of course, like marketing is a massive revenue driver, but there is still steps before revenue, right? Hence why visibility and reach are important. They're not going to turn into revenue the next day, right? And yet they need consistent investment. So I think this is where misalignment can easily start, and that kind of brings us to the data point again, right? With a lack of data, it will always be difficult to measure and prove, right? And that can only happen over time. So instead of signing up for a booth and making a massive investment, sending 2 sellers there to actually, make the first like kind of proof point of this event is useful for us, with 2 sellers, to then have the possibility next year maybe to have a booth and so on, right? So this is I think a very smart way to do this and to mitigate that disconnect.
No. I think in that sense, I definitely agree. I think we do one. I think everything where we can possibly measure, we definitely try to sort of push for. And measure just means collect data. So if we can collect data, we do. But let's say we did. I mean, this is we did a billboard on Times Square at one point.
Yeah.
It was. There's no way that we can ever track if that impacted our sales pipeline. But I can also say I'm pretty sure that it didn't. Like the billboard itself, I don't think anybody saw it. Like actually seeing it on Times Square, it was shown for 1 minute every hour for 24 hours. I don't think anybody in our ICP saw it.
Yeah.
Never happened. But then we did a video of it and we put that on LinkedIn. And that got a lot of views, right? Now we could, on LinkedIn, like organic views is not, it's very cumbersome to track organic views. You can, if you put them on your company profile, you can track them. But if you do like personal profiles, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
But then if you get a lot of traction on a personal profile, then you can promote it and put money behind it, and now you can measure it. Like now you know if they are seeing, like if people are seeing it, and if your ICP is seeing it. So I think, I think that's a lot about sort of doing smart marketing. Like how are you, like if you're a super smart marketer, what are you doing? Like, well, make the big investment. Like if you're putting a big investment into something, you also need big proof. If you're putting $500 into a billboard on Times Square, you think, who cares, right? But if you're promoting that video for I don't know, $100,000, then you probably need evidence that it's working, right?
Yeah. I mean, that is the upside of like a test budget versus like campaign focused budget or goal oriented budget, however it is built, right? I mean, that is the fun part of it. Getting to test. The problem is just that if you can't like kind of prove the value of the tests, then you also
Yeah.
don't really have a proper test to scale or to decide if this is something that should be invested in, right?
But I think it's like, let's say you as like the CEO, let's say as the CEO, like who is sitting on top of it, like what should you require? What's the evidence you should require? Well, to spend $500 on a billboard, if you require evidence there other than the receipt, I mean, then it doesn't work. If people can't do that, then it's a problem. Then you can say, now some people are like, I'm just taking this as an example. Now some people are writing about this posting. You're spending maybe, I don't know, 10 man hours in your company. What level of evidence do you need there? Nothing. Like spending 10 hours, like people spend 10 hours making coffee, right? And we think that that's worth it. Like, so we don't need any evidence for people to spend 10 hours. But those 10 hours then can produce evidence that it's worth putting more money into it, because the 10 hours will show if there's any traction. Like, can this actually generate organic traction? If you can get organic traction for those 10 hours, well, now you have enough proof to maybe make a bigger investment. So maybe now you put in, 10,000 or 25,000, and now you probably need more proof. Now you're going to be looking at, how many sales qualified leads are actually impacted by this spend later. So I think it's about sort of requiring proof at different levels for different levels of investment. And I would just say fundamentally, like, as a marketing team, it's super important that you have the freedom, that the $500 for the billboard, people should just say yes to that. Of course, if you come and ask for $500 every hour, every day, every week, maybe it's different, but nobody does that.
But it's up.
People have a great idea people have an interesting idea once a week or once a month or so. So, you test that. Like, do you want to spend 5 hours shooting a video about a new product that's like a fun, play? Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. And we put 10 hours into this and we see what happens. We don't have to debate that. But if we're going to do a big investment, okay, then we'll make sure we track and we make sure we know what happens, etc.
Yeah, Dreamdata sits right there where, I mean, you help uncover like the a lot of the hidden paths, right? And the buyers that are in market that aren't actually raising their hands actively yet. So what like the data you provide, what department do you think it does it actually belong to? Like, who should own it internally, and is it like one department, or is it actually like a task force in itself?
I think for some parts of the data, it's definitely mostly the marketing team that cares about it, because it's sort of a tool for them to perform better and produce better results. But then, like, there has to be a bridge into the next team. So, like, how do I then get this to an outbound team, or how do I get it to a sales team, depending on what you're doing? So, but they have their own systems. So I think it's more like they don't have to own that data. They just, like, as the marketing team, I think it's great if you build some kind of data foundation for yourself, and then you have a good plan for how to move it into the other systems when it happens. Like, now this account has done some things that we know show that they are, highly likely to become a sales qualified lead. Nobody's looking into it. Okay, let me pass this off to a BDR that can then, try to call them, try to connect on LinkedIn, try to message people on LinkedIn, try to build a relationship, so that we are first in this deal. I think as a marketing team, there's a bunch of things that you just do on your own. Like, as long as you're aligned on who you're selling to, you can buy your ads on your own, you can optimize your ads on your own. But at some point, someone else has to work. And then you need to agree with them on like, okay, how do we do this? Where do I give you this so that you don't just forget that it exists?
Yeah.
I did, like, as the marketing team, we did all this work and we spent all this money to produce this thing for you that is highly valuable. Where do I put it so that you know that it exists? And ideally also, all the stuff that I know about them, because I did a lot of things to them. So I did all these campaigns and I sent them all. I did all these things. You should know that, so that when you start working on them, then you're not starting from scratch, right? So, but I don't think that is sort of like data ownership. Is more like to make sure that you can pass that data along into the systems where the next team works. Like a lot of BDR teams, they'll be working in outreach or some dialer. Like, how do I surface the data in there in a way where it fits their workflow? And I think that as a marketer, the only thing you do is actually, like, either maybe you did it yourself and then you know what that workflow looks like. But most marketers, the best thing you can do is actually go and talk to them and say, okay, hey, what does this actually look like? And then you discover, all sorts of crazy things, and then hopefully you can help them.
Yeah, and to add to that, I think the next element in that, and a big building block of great alignment and collaboration is the communication aspect, right? And again, it also comes down to like the go-to-market teams and what you mentioned before. But every department, every person comes, of course, with their own understanding and with their own communication. So this is also an exercise to translate that data from a marketing perspective to a sales perspective that actually equips BDRs and sellers with the information data they need in a way that they can activate it the best possible way, right? Because what like marketing's viewpoint on the data might be and what is the highest priority might not always be the highest priority, and how BDRs communicate the values they communicate and how they reach out, right? So there's also like this translation and communication gap that needs to be closed there to ensure that they understand the data, of course, as fast as possible, because they have lots of calls to make and messages to write. But also can activate that as fast and like effective as possible.
Yeah, totally. I think like the thing that worked really well is walking over there and talk to them and look at what they do and how they work.
Always.
And also, like, as a marketer, like, because one, like, you're producing something, you're producing accounts that are worth working on because they have seen things, or like they fit your profile, they've been exposed to things, maybe they engaged on your content or whatever. So that, like, that's one thing. But you also have the other things, like you probably have, like, a lot of content that's been produced. So maybe if you can figure out how to map that content so that when you're passing this thing along, saying, hey, this company and these people actually have a problem that we can solve and they care about it. And if you then also have some content you can pass along that fits that company, let's say it's like maybe you're selling to a specific industry and maybe you have a case study for that industry, or maybe you sell to different personas and you have content that fits that persona very well, or maybe there's like 5 personas attached to the account that you're passing along. And one is a product marketer and one is a demand gen marketer, one is a brand marketer. I mean, in the best of worlds, you also match them to the sort of content and like the other end of what a marketing team produces.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And last question. Frenemies is about like a gap that gets created between how companies plan growth and how growth actually happens. So, from your perspective, where do you see the biggest gap in this right now?
Yes, I think one place where I think some teams are maybe going a bit wrong is sort of like supercharging a predictable revenue motion with LLM. So basically, you have like predictable revenue motions, which is like a BDR motion with sequences. And now you can generate even more emails and you can make them even more personalized without actually having a human look at them. So I think teams that are using LLMs to supercharge that type of motion, I think I feel missing the point a bit, because I think LLMs in go-to-market really pushes for like the human the human connection. So those teams that are using AI to improving the human connection, I think they're going in the right direction. Like if you're using LLMs to, prepare your call so that you can have a good call. Like if somebody actually picks up the phone when you're calling, you should treasure that as like the most important thing that happened that day. Somebody like a real human wants to talk to you. So if you can make that conversation count, then I think you're doing the right thing. But if you're going in the other direction and just, spamming that call away by, even like robocalling, like, then you're going in the wrong direction. Like you're missing the point there. So I think that's like maybe one of the things I see now in go-to-market.
Yeah, super valuable point. And yeah, Lars, I'll take from this conversation that data closes the measurement gap, but not the alignment gap. That is still the human factor. And yeah, thanks for joining.
Super happy to be on the show, Julia. It's a big pleasure.